43 doesn't even seem possible.
Find the pack of wolves preying on our children. Slaughter them all.
A shadow moves in Yellowstone, unseen, unheard, but every step leaves a mark. Casey Dutton thought he understood the threats around him, thought he could walk through the darkness with his instincts as his only shield. He was wrong. Out of the shadows, danger has a new face, and this time it's closer than he ever imagined. Trust is no longer a weapon, it's a liability. Every ally could be a trap, every decision a misstep, and every heartbeat is the countdown to the moment when the hunter becomes the hunted. Episode 6 of Marshals isn't about missing girls anymore. It's about survival, betrayal, and the kind of danger that strikes without warning. Episode 6 begins with silence that isn't peaceful. It's the kind of silence that presses against your chest, that makes every instinct scream that something is about to break. Casey Dutton steps into this silence like a man who believes he is untouchable, unaware that the ground beneath him has already been rigged. The events of Episode 5 were supposed to mark a triumph. A missing girl found, a mission completed, a hero's moment. But that victory is a memory now, fading fast under the weight of consequences he didn't calculate. Because in Yellowstone, every act leaves a shadow. Every movement is observed and every choice has a cost that can't be paid back. Casey's instincts, usually his greatest strength, are about to become the very weapon his enemies use to pin him down. The quiet that greets him isn't the absence of sound, it's a signal. The people who once watched from afar are now closing in. The lines between friend and foe blurred until they almost don't exist. Allies who once offered silent support now set traps with precision, exploiting the one weakness Casey has never shaken, his trust in his gut. He walks forward, chest out, boots crunching against gravel, convinced that courage alone can shield him. The camera, or, in our faceless video, the narration, places the audience in his shoes, exposed, surrounded, and oblivious to how meticulously the game has been orchestrated. Every glance, every movement, every heartbeat carries weight. And weight in Yellowstone doesn't forgive mistakes. Casey's heroics in the previous episode were instinctual, a pure act of righteous fury. He didn't wait for backup. He ignored protocol. He moved when others hesitated, and for a brief, shining moment, he was untouchable. But the rules aren't made to protect heroes. They're made to contain them. When he stepped out alone into the darkness, he left behind not just danger, but footprints, stories, and traces that can be read by anyone with eyes to see. Every calculated observer, every patient strategist, every shadow in the distance now has the information they need to turn his success into a weapon against him. In Yellowstone, doing the right thing doesn't guarantee safety. It guarantees visibility. And visibility is vulnerability. The first layer of tension in this episode is psychological. Casey's confidence, the sun constant that has defined him since day one, is about to collide with the reality built by patient minds who play a different game entirely. The chief has been watching, learning, recording. Every movement, every choice, every unguarded moment has been cataloged. And in Episode 6, observation becomes action. The first trap isn't loud. It isn't explosive. It's deliberate, meticulous, and almost invisible. A single piece of evidence, placed with intention, redefines the boundaries of what Casey believes to be safe. When the chief discovers it, the revelation is seismic. A locker, personal, private, a space he assumes is sacrosanct, is now the stage of deception. The fact that it was found in Casey's private domain elevates the stakes. This isn't just investigation. This is psychological warfare. The questions the audience must ask themselves are immediate. Who is orchestrating this? Is it the chief himself, bending the rules of justice for ends only he understands? Or is there another, unseen player moving pieces across the board while Casey and the chief act unaware? The suspense is almost unbearable because the possibilities multiply by the second. Each revelation, each subtle shift in the power balance raises the tension. The silence around Casey isn't calm. It's the countdown to exposure, the waiting for the bullet, the inevitability of consequence. Meanwhile, the personal stakes are equally devastating. Cal's daughter, once a background presence, a quiet figure in the bar, becomes central to the looming threat. Every action she takes, every observation is calculated. Her relationship with Casey and her father is no longer a subplot, it's a vector for danger. Every conversation overheard, every face memorized, every small shift in routine is a brushstroke in a larger, darker painting. She is not acting out of emotion or anger. She is executing a plan, one that could dismantle everything Casey believes he knows about trust, family, and loyalty. In this first section, the episode is establishing that betrayal can come not from strangers, but from those closest, from shadows within the home of the law itself. By the end of the first segment, the audience should feel as exposed as Casey feels. The traps are laid, the intentions are opaque, and the psychological tension is suffocating. Casey's triumph in episode 5 is a ghost now, haunting his every move. The hero's instincts are about to be weaponized. Trust is the weakest currency, and every step forward is into a battlefield unseen. The shadows themselves are alive in Yellowstone, and Casey is walking straight into them, unaware that the game has changed and the rules no longer protect the brave, they punish them. Casey's victory in episode 5 was brief, almost blinding in its brilliance, but in the world of Yellowstone, brilliance comes with a cost. He moves through the ranch with a false sense of control, unaware that every step he takes is being calculated by minds that do not forgive recklessness. The silence that surrounds him now isn't empty, it's deliberate, a prelude to the storm. Every shadow could conceal eyes, every sound could carry intent, and every familiar face could be the first indicator of betrayal. Casey's confidence is his armor, but here, confidence is a vulnerability. Every decision he made, every action driven by instinct, is being dissected and turned against him, proven that instinct alone can never outmatch strategy when the opponent sees every move before it happens. The first trap is subtle, almost imperceptible, but its impact is immediate. Evidence surfaces where it shouldn't exist. Evidence that ties Casey to the missing girl case in a way that is impossible to ignore. Not in the general area, not at the site of the investigation, but inside his personal locker, private space, sanctum of a man who believes in boundaries. The implications are seismic. The chief, meticulous and patient, discovers this piece of evidence and his reaction is quiet, measured, but the weight is crushing. For years he has observed, analyzed, and waited. Now, a single object in a single place threatens to unravel everything, forcing questions about honesty, trust, and whether the rules themselves are enough to maintain justice. The audience feels the tension in every heartbeat, every pause. This is not a moment of action. It is a moment of inevitability, where the psychological pressure is as dangerous as any gun. The chief's intentions remain opaque. Is he a man finally reaching the conclusion he has been building toward with decades of careful observation? Or is there a darker force at play? Someone manipulating the evidence to force a collision between Casey and authority? Every possibility is terrifying. If the chief placed the evidence himself, justice becomes subjective, moral lines blur, and the audience is forced to question whether the pursuit of right can justify the bending of rules. If someone else planted it, the stakes are exponentially higher. A hidden puppet master pulling strings, a player with the patience and reach to manipulate two of Yellowstone's most powerful forces without revealing themselves. The suspense here isn't about explosions or gunfire. It's about anticipation, about the silent threat that could strike at any moment, turning instinct and trust into liability. Casey's position is increasingly precarious. Every action he takes to protect himself only confirms the narrative being constructed against him. Every step forward leaves him more exposed, more visible, more vulnerable. The very instincts that saved the girl in episode 5 now make him the perfect target. The world around him has shifted. Allies become ambiguous, lines blur between protection and danger, and every familiar face is suspect. The stakes are no longer abstract, they are visceral. The audience can almost feel the weight on Casey's shoulders, the oppressive tension in every interaction, every glance, every decision. The isolation is total, and in that isolation, even the strongest instincts can falter. Meanwhile, the personal dimension of betrayal becomes a psychological minefield. Cal's daughter, R, once assumed to be merely a peripheral figure, emerges as a key player. Her presence is no longer background noise. It is a direct force acting on the events around Casey. Every observation she makes, every pattern she records, every small act of intelligence gathering is deliberate. She is not a bystander to the unfolding drama. She is an active participant, a shadow shaping events from the inside. The discovery of her involvement is shocking not only for its immediate threat, but for what it represents. Trust, loyalty, and family are no longer safe anchors. They are tools to be exploited. The audience feels the betrayal, the tension, the moral ambiguity. No one is untouchable. Everyone is exposed. By the midpoint of Section 2, the tension escalates to a near unbearable level. The audience sees Casey not as the confident hero from Episode 5, but as a man caught in a web of strategy and deception he cannot yet comprehend. Every instinct he has relied upon, every decision made without calculation, becomes a potential error. The silence of the ranch, the ordinary rhythm of daily life, becomes an instrument of suspense. Each moment builds to a psychological crescendo, a trap meticulously designed to exploit courage, trust, and the inherent need to act morally in a world that does not reward morality. Casey's isolation, the uncertainty of allies, and the hidden players operating in the shadows converge to create a tension that is almost suffocating, a slow-burning anxiety that grips both the character and the audience. And yet, amidst this danger, Casey persists. He moves forward not because he knows the outcome, but because he cannot stop acting. Courage and instinct define him, and they are the same traits that make him vulnerable. This section concludes with the undeniable truth of Episode 6. In Yellowstone, being right is meaningless if the world around you is designed to punish it. The audience is left at the edge of suspense, aware that the traps are closing, the players are positioning themselves, and Casey's next move will determine not only his survival, but the unfolding of every relationship, every alliance, and every secret that has been quietly shaping the season. The closer Casey gets to understanding the storm around him, the less he realizes how much is already shifted. Episode 6 isn't just about danger. It's about the subtle, calculated ways betrayal can worm its way into every part of a life once thought secure. The ranch, once a place of familiar routines and predictable alliances, has become a chessboard. Every player moves in silence, measured steps designed to manipulate, to provoke, to expose weakness. Casey is at the center of it, unaware that the ground beneath him is no longer solid. He walks, as he always has, with confidence, with instinct, with the belief that courage and morality are enough to protect him. But in this world, courage is a beacon for predators, and morality is a vulnerability to be exploited. Cal's daughter emerges more prominently in this section, and the audience begins to understand the depth of her role. She isn't acting on impulse or personal vendetta. She is strategic, deliberate, a shadow operating in plain sight. Every bar shift, every subtle glance, every overheard conversation is collected and processed. She is building a picture, and that picture has Casey at its center. This isn't a story of petty revenge. It is a long game of manipulation, a weaponization of familial connection, loyalty, and trust. The psychological tension here is devastating. The very people Casey and Cal believe they can rely on are now conduits for danger. Every familiar space, every safe routine, becomes a potential trap. At the same time, the chief's role complicates the narrative. His discovery of the evidence in Casey's locker could mean multiple things, and the ambiguity is intentional. Did he plant it himself, bend in the rules to ensure justice, or perceived justice was served? Or was he manipulated, a piece moved by a hidden hand whose patience exceeds his own? The audience is left questioning morality, intention, and the very structure of authority. If the chief is honest, his actions blur the lines between justice and vengeance, truth and fabrication. If he is being played, it exposes a vulnerability in the power structure Casey has always relied upon. Either way, the tension escalates because the consequences are immediate and unavoidable. Casey's every move is now observed with suspicion, analyzed for meaning, and ready to be used against him. As Casey navigates this precarious landscape, the audience sees the duality of his predicament. On one level, there is the physical danger, unseen observers, hidden threats, the ever-present possibility of violence. On another level, there is the emotional and psychological danger, the betrayal of trust, the manipulation of relationships, the uncertainty of who stands with him and who stands against him. Every decision carries the weight of both, and the script emphasizes this by drawing attention to the invisible threads connecting every character, every action, every secret. In Yellowstone, the battlefield is both external and internal, and in Episode 6, the stakes are nothing short of existential. The tension compounds when subtle details begin to reveal themselves. The bullet left at Casey's door is not a random act of intimidation. It is a promise. The timing, the precision, the audacity of leaving it in a place that should have been secure signals intent, premeditation, and a message that resonates through every corner of the ranch. The psychological weight of that bullet is monumental. It is not merely a threat against Casey, it is a challenge, a declaration that the game has changed, that every choice moving forward will carry consequences measured not in seconds, but in survival. The audience feels this deeply, sensing the inevitability of confrontation even before the first action occurs. As the episode progresses through this section, Casey's heroism from episode 5 is reframed. What was once a moment of triumph is now a liability, a beacon illuminating his vulnerabilities. His instincts, previously unassailable, are now the very thing guiding him into the traps laid by those who understand him best. The careful orchestration of betrayal, from the shadows of the chief's office to the subtle surveillance by Cal's daughter, creates a network of tension that feels inescapable. The audience experiences this as a slow burn. Every revelation, every moment of insight, every unanswered question compounds the sense of dread, leaving viewers on edge. Finally, Section 3 closes by framing the emotional core of the episode. Beyond the physical danger, beyond the strategic traps, lies the ultimate tension: loyalty versus morality, instinct versus survival, family versus duty. Casey is caught in the center, a man defined by courage and integrity, now tested in ways that cannot be prepared for. The shadows of betrayal stretch across every relationship, every alliance, every corner of the ranch. And as episode 6 unfolds, the audience is left with one inescapable truth. In Yellowstone, nothing is safe, no trust is sacred, and the silent triggers are waiting, ready to change everything. Episode 6 doesn't just test Casey, it dismantles the world around him piece by piece. The ranch, once a bastion of trust and routine, is now a landscape of suspicion and quiet threats. Every familiar face is a potential opponent, every gesture a possible deception. Casey's instincts have always been his greatest asset, but now those same instincts are a double-edged sword. The moves he once relied upon to save lives, to protect the innocent, are being interpreted as recklessness, evidence, and opportunity by those who wish him harm. What was heroic is now incriminating. What was decisive is now dangerous. The tension is psychological as much as physical, and the audience feels the pressure tighten with every passing second. The chief, previously a figure of patient observation, begins to take action in ways that are both terrifying and precise. His measured approach, the slow construction of strategy over months, now reaches a critical juncture. The discovery in Casey's locker is more than evidence. It is leverage. Whether the chief planted it or found it, the implications are seismic. Every interaction, every conversation, every decision by Casey is now scrutinized under the weight of potential consequences. The audience can sense the pivot point. The chief has moved from quiet observer to active player, and the reverberations of his choices threaten to engulf everyone in his orbit. Casey's world, already precarious, teeters on the edge of chaos. At the same time, Cal's daughter steps fully into the shadows of manipulation. Her intelligence gathering, previously subtle, now carries a cold, deliberate precision. Every shift, every overheard conversation, every detail recorded behind the bar is ammunition in a larger game. She's no longer a passive observer or a background character. She's a force, strategically aligned with interests that directly oppose both Casey and her father. The audience experiences the betrayal in waves: shock, disbelief, fear, and mounting tension. Family, the ultimate source of loyalty and safety, is revealed as a weapon, and the emotional stakes become as immediate as the physical threats. The silence she maintains is deafening. The audience knows it signals action that will strike with devastating impact. The psychological warfare escalates when the bullet at Casey's door is revisited. It is no longer a simple threat. It is a declaration of intent. Whoever left it has studied him, understood him, and is willing to make their presence known in the most intimate of spaces. The tension here is exquisite because it is invisible yet palpable. The audience can feel Casey's pulse, can imagine the weight on his shoulders, can sense the trap closing around him. Every instinct he has relied upon to navigate danger now points toward an inescapable collision with the forces that have been carefully orchestrating events behind the scenes. In this world, every decision is a gamble, and the odds are stacked against him in ways that even his intuition cannot fully anticipate.